Also, this is rather informal. Like we are rather kind of informal. So if you do have questions, like feel free to like raise your hand and ask them throughout the meeting. It's not like you're at city council where you got your 3 minutes at the beginning and that's it. So feel free to engage as much as you'd like.
Okay, Joaquin, we're ready.
Thank you, Gretchen. It is, what time is it? 7:02 on August 27th, and I will bring this meeting of the Human Rights Commission's Community Engagement Committee to order, and thank you all for being here. We'll get ourselves started with some introductions. Let's begin by way of the room. Robert, do you want to get us started?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. My name is Robert Marshall. I am the vice chair to the Human Rights Commission. I use he, him pronouns, and I will pass it to my left.
Good evening. My name is Gretchen Bennett, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the staff liaison to the commission. And I'll pass to Celine.
Hi everyone. My name's Celine Coleman. Sorry, I was trying to fix my name. Uh, and I'm a member of the commission as well as the community or the Human Rights Commission and the Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you, Celine.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Moss, go ahead.
Hi all, I'm Moss Lynn. I'm a commissioner. I use they, them pronouns, and I am not a member of this committee.
Alrighty. Thank you all for being here, and to our guests who is invited to introduce themselves should they wish, but of course under no obligation to do so. Um, are there any public comments, Gretchen, received or in person tonight?
None received, and no, not tonight.
Okay, thank you. Are there any member remarks and or announcements on non-agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, let's get into what I think will be the bulk of our conversation tonight. I don't know how long of a conversation we'll have tonight, but the bulk of it I think will be here, which is around our upcoming presentation to council on the 22nd of September. I will unfortunately be in California that day, and Robert has very valiantly and generously volunteered his voice, to lend his voice as vice chair of the commission to this particular presentation. Remember, we have 5 to 7 minutes to present, like last year. I'm grateful for that time to speak directly to councilors and decision makers at the city level. Um, and so, this is kind of a two-pronged uh, information delivery mechanism. There's obviously the 5 to 7 minutes of the presentation, which we will not talk about too much tonight, I don't think. But then there's this written component, this written report that accompanies um, the presentation and goes and is submitted in advance um, of our presentation and for the digestion of mayor and council. That is due loosely or liberally on the 8th of September. And I think this meeting constitutes our last brush with it, our last attempt to look at it and to refine it. And so this will be maybe our third or fourth kind of informal conversation about it. And then after tonight, we'll incorporate whatever outstanding comments y'all have, and Robert, Gretchen, and I will finalize it, and then create the presentation that will be delivered to council. So, are there any questions about where we are in this process and what's ahead of us? All right. The structure of this is pretty standard and very much mirrors what was done last year. In addition to the contents of this, which we'll get into in a second, they being council and mayor will receive, of course, the PDF version of the Western Oregon presentation that they gave to us. a few months ago, and then, or a month and a half ago, and then they will receive the written report as well as, I hope, disaggregated data. Gretchen and Robert and I met as recently as yesterday, and we thought that we had kind of come across what we're looking for the data component of the presentation, or the report rather. Marianne is unfortunately on vacation this week, and I did get access to it, Gretchen and Robert, from presumably one of the master students there at Western, and it was in fact not what we had hoped it was. Still do not have that, and we'll just have to wait for Professor Bradshaw to return from her vacation to get that. But just want to give that small update. So there's going to be this three components: the written report from Western, the presentation, and then the disaggregated narrative data, as well as our own kind of council update, which we're looking at now. All right. I took a pass at this this afternoon. I should have, I guess, maybe done a key for us, but in red, you'll have things that have come up from conversations of ours, either at this committee level or at the commission level. Generally, blue, things in blue are things that I think are done, but things that I really incorporated from last year and modified and brought into this year's report. And then green are things that I think we probably should include, because we did it in years past, for continuity's sake should include again, but maybe are not finalized or done yet. And then on top of that, I left comments that might be of interest to us as we kind of navigate this. And then in purple, oh my gosh, I did a lot of color coding. I love my colors. And purple are things that were from last year's report that may be relevant to this year's report, but I did not edit or think or had decided that was really important to include. And then everything else in black are things that we had talked about and bulleted as being of interest to the commission. Does that make sense?
Joaquin, this is Gretchen. I want to say thank you. And yes, I'm tracking. And if you want me to scroll slowly through, those of you at home, this would be the link that was sent out with your agenda as well. So you may also be able to click into it.
Yeah, we can also maybe just go through it, Gretchen. I think we've done a good job of compiling people's comments over the last couple of conversations, but maybe haven't really holistically gone through the document. This was my first time spending more than a few minutes with it myself. So, so there's a couple of kind of preambular recommendations here in the information only section. Information only is like a declarative statement. What is the recommendation of this report, and it's informational as opposed to remedial or policy based. And so, but there were potential things to include in the recommendations, and I just commented for those listening at home who may not be able to engage the presentation that my preference is to maintain it as informational, but there might be, as alluded here to other people's comments, things we want to maybe reflect on or comment on, either in this document or, Robert, during your presentation to council, comments that would again reflect on priorities for council apropos of kind of houses experiences, given that's been a big topic conversation in the city recently, the importance of third spaces to community belonging, etc. So that's just kind of my general comment here.
Actually, Joaquin, it's to me to just make quick mention, at the risk of being over procedural, underneath the word recommendation, we only have two options. They keep things formatted carefully for clarity. One is just to say information only. A second is to state an action item that council could vote on that evening. And we're not slated for a voting action moment as part of a presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is 100% my understanding as well.
Good. Okay. Apologies. Very good.
And that's what I was trying to say, was that this is informational. And so, there's no there's no recommendation of ours at this time. And we have in the past, either because we've been asked to or volunteered during the presentation, things for the council to consider or think about. But that isn't in any way an actionable item for them. But this presentation is informational. I said that I made the comment because some of these comments were read as if they were things that they wanted the council to do, which is maybe a little bit outside of the scope of this presentation.
Thank you. And this is probably not interesting for me to point out, but we would just put that underneath the facts and findings section.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, just double checking we're on the same page. Thank you.
But these, I didn't move things, well, with a few exceptions, I didn't move things between sections. I respected where they were, but I just wanted to highlight them. Does anybody have any questions about what's in red or anything about the nature of the presentation, given what previous comments seem to suggest here? All right. Gretchen, would you mind going down to facts and findings here? All of this is general information that's remained consistent. It's just stating the nature of the survey and what's going on. I think this really hasn't changed much year to year. Is that right, Gretchen?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. What's in green here in the facts and finding is stating more about what are some of our outreach efforts consisted of this year, mentioning that we did a partner information session, for example, and then detailing here maybe some of our in-person events that were held. What was in red here, I felt comfortable cutting or recommending having it cut. This was a comment that I think actually I may have made a month or so ago, that I'm happy to see included in here, but I'm not sure if it needs to live in this document. So, do folks feel comfortable cutting this what's in red? Celine is giving a thumbs up, and my screen says that the anonymous ferret has highlighted it. So, whoever that is, feel free to. Thank you. Is that you, Gretchen?
No, the anonymous person is me. This is Commissioner Marshall here. I'm gonna see if I can try to find a way to not be anonymous as I help Gretchen with the edits in this living.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just us who are sharing on it, so it's all right. It's not a problem. But everyone knows that the anonymous ferret is Robert. That's the name on the little handle.
I would like to point out nothing that mine says anonymous dinosaur, but I do think anonymous ferret sounds a lot better. So we'll go with anonymous ferret.
Right? That character. So the major facts and findings, the way these are listed and bulleted in front of you tonight, right now, is not the way that it had been previously. This is just the way the information was presented to council last year in 2024. And I simply updated both the kind of the percentage numerical information as well as maybe framings that may have changed. We don't have to keep this. I think some of it is useful and helpful and we may want to keep, but I kind of just wanted to have a baseline for continuity here, and as they recall what they received last year, if they do recall it, although some of them are new counselors and seeing this information for the first time, but I thought maybe it might be nice to have some continuity here. So the first bullet point is around experiences of community in Salem. That question of ours this year actually did change a little bit, but the spirit of this is similar to what was asked and shared last year with the counselors. And so the updated data is that 26%, excuse me, of all respondents share that they either somewhat or strongly disagree with the statement, quote, overall, I feel a sense of community in Salem. 44% of folks experiencing houselessness and 17%, oh shoot, I should say 17% of Pacific Islander respondents reported that they felt they did not belong in the Salem community. Those two, the Pacific Islander community and the houseless community, were overquoted, and so I thought it merited being included here in this entry.
Joaquin, this is Gretchen. 17% of
It
other,
was the Pacific Islander community, the folks who were overquoted.
Anonymous Dinosaur is on it. Thank you.
The second, I hope I'm not talking just to talk. I'm talking out loud and reading them out loud so that folks who maybe can't engage with this meeting in this way can hear what we're talking about and follow along. The second bullet was 30 X. It was X percentage of all respondents said that they had personally experienced discrimination, and then there was an aside for the unhoused experience. This year, those figures are 30% of respondents included they had or expressed rather that they had personally experienced discrimination in Salem, and 83%. That rate was 83% among unhoused respondents. So this is one way for us to really capture this chasm, this divide of experience between housed and unhoused populations in Salem. Next, we broke down the three most prevalent or self-reported prevalent types of discrimination. These were higher. These categories garnered a higher percentage of reporting this year, although it was a smaller sample size this year than last year, about half the size actually, unfortunately. But and they were the same top three, and they were in the same order. So that would be race, color, national origin at 37% of respondents, age at 37% of respondents, and 35% of respondents of gender. These are not, I should say, not 37% of respondents overall, but 37% of respondents who selected that they had personally experienced discrimination in Salem. It was on these grounds that they showed that they experienced their discrimination. Again, race, color, national origin, age, and gender. The difference between the most commonly experienced areas or type of discrimination, rather, race, color, national origin, and gender, was much larger last year. I'm forgetting now exactly what the delta was, but this year it's again really collapsed into a uniformity here, which is, I think, interesting, though unfortunate, of course. And then finally, 88% of respondents experiencing houselessness ascribed or assigned their experiences of discrimination to their housing status. That is the same as last year, same percentage. We had included, or had we included, or maybe we had another place where folks were experiencing discrimination. That was a big thing we changed in the survey a couple of years back that I was really interested in learning about, which was, okay, great, we're learning about what folks are experiencing, but where are they experiencing it? Is it places of public accommodation, businesses, work, home, neighborhoods, school, etc. I was going back at the WU presentation, and there was a couple pages dedicated to invisible versus visible discrimination in situations like the workplace or other locations, but there wasn't that strong kind of more concretized information that what we could include in a report. So maybe what I'll do, realizing this now, is add a second request to the professor, which would be to break that down for us. That is data, by the way, which would be, I think, available to us if we had the desire to get data ourselves, but I think amounts to an additional request of the professor. And then the last two bullet points in blue, I'm sorry, I think I'm talking, I am talking way too much, and I apologize for that. The last two bullet points are as follows. One was couched around the language of reporting to SPD. If you are a target of bias crime, how comfortable would you be reporting to SPD? I actually think this language may have changed this year, so I have to go back and change it. But the comparable rate was the rather comparable question, and its answer was that 68% of all respondents, independently of whether they had experienced discrimination or not, showed that they would feel somewhat or very uncomfortable reporting bias to the police. So it's almost 70% of people. Now this, that is, I think I even made a comment. I did. That is 20 points higher than last year. Which
Well,
is notable.
I want to
Yes,
interrupt, but I'll jump in with something near that. I don't want to interrupt that point.
you're not interrupted. Please interrupt me.
I wonder, one question we added this year was about how comfortable people would be to report to the Human Rights Commission. And I wonder if this would be a good area to add that data in as well.
Yes, we might want to scroll down, Gretchen. I think I may have done that in a separate place, or maybe it was about, or maybe I tried, but we've been having a hard time engaging with the document, like clicking on it, clicking on links, copying and pasting. And I say that because I think I may have attempted to copy and paste language from the report, which was something to the effect of, 50% of folks didn't even know about the HRC, and so that really affected impacted their ability to, or their willingness to report. So I mentioned in that too, Gretchen, and I have the pagination for that in the report. I just couldn't copy and paste it, and I think I may have given up, candidly. So that's something we have yet to do. But yeah, I would like to have that information as well, included as well. And then just very quickly and last, the dates of the survey and how many respondents. So it was in the field from the 24th of April to the 14th of May, and there were 420 respondents who completed the survey. Available in English, Spanish, Chuukese, and Marshallese. So I apologize for that being kind of a word vomit, a monologuing of sorts. But those are kind of the big changes that since the last time you saw it. We do not have to keep everything or any of it if you don't wish, but it's there for us all the same. And then in the last section are the draft elements of the July discussion. And I did leave comments here because I thought some of them were maybe, including the first one there, I couldn't really identify where we had gotten that in the report easily, and so I thought it kind of merited further scrutiny before we include in the report things like the population report and the most discrimination. I couldn't easily find that, and so I just wanted to make sure that we double check that. All right, I'm sorry. I'm done now. Does anybody have any comments or questions or things that they'd like to see be different, things that are really missing, things that we haven't covered yet?
I think that this is a great summary of basically the presentation we received and highlights all the key things we've talked about in the general meetings. So I think this was very well put together.
Appreciate that, Moss.
I mean, I think it looks great. And starts the conversation with council.
Yeah, definitely. I think to Gretchen's earlier, and thank you, Celine, for that comment too. I think I'm just looking here at these section that we're hovering over. To Gretchen's earlier comment about where we replace these sort of recommendations of ours about, or not recommendations, but kind of guidances or feedback to council. Things like the library, parks, Center 50 Plus, etc. I think we should have language in this section attesting to that, the value that those places bring for fostering senses of belonging and community building. And that was something we did not explicitly talk about in our report last year, which I think was made it a weaker report. So I would like to do that. So please do anticipate some language around that in the facts and findings.
I think that that would be a good like highlight of the report, or like a great way to be like, this is the happy ending. We are doing well in these places and need to mimic that more.
Yeah, and it was the subject of a back and forth between Councilor Nordyke and I when I gave the presentation. Because at the time, as you may recall, there were um, obviously the city remains in budget austerity, but there were significant debates going on in the community around the future of the library, and we heard again and again that that was a place, especially for queer youth and queer folks in Salem, to come and gather and be in community for one another. And so that was a, a major thing that we returned to in our presentation. I just wanted to foreground that in our written report this time around. Gretchen, do you have any reactions or comments as staff?
Oh, you're so kind. Not at the moment, but I'll continue to think about it. But thank you.
All right. And forgive me, I don't remember. We do not have a meeting before the 8th, correct? For the general commission.
Will you say that one more time?
Before the 8th, when it's due, we do not have our meeting. Our meeting is the 10th, right? It's after.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
If you do have a section that you really want to bring to the meeting on the 10th, I can make an arrangement though, to submit.
Understood, yeah.
I believe that's doable.
Yeah, thank you. I don't anticipate that, but I just wanted to ensure that everyone understood that. Robert, do you have any comments or feedback?
This is Commissioner Marshall here. I think the report looks excellent, Joaquin. I do wanna thank you so much for taking the time to plug away at that and have this draft ready for this meeting. So I greatly appreciate your work on this document.
Genuinely, no problem. Happy to do that. Right. Well, if I don't want to linger here too long if there's nothing more to say. I appreciate all of you for bearing with me as I almost literally read through the whole thing, and for your feedbacks and consideration. Robert, I don't know if we have an update apropos of the data visualization tonight, but if we do, it's all yours. I know. Well, I'll let you mention maybe what you mentioned yesterday, which is maybe some next steps and setting up a meeting with your colleague from work and with the city. But I'll let you say that.
Yes, Commissioner Marshall here. Thank you for that, Joaquin. Really nothing further for those that haven't been a part of recent conversations. We've decided to take kind of the data visualization efforts. So it's been a passion of this committee for a while to be a little more transparent with some of the data that we receive, both in terms of this community belonging survey, as well as reports of discrimination, and just being able to kind of share that information via a dashboard on the either city's website or our HRC website. And we've decided to, Dan Brown, who's the ArcGIS manager for the city of Salem, has offered to provide a lot of support, but it's been difficult given his schedule and then the times that this committee generally meets. So we've decided to push this into a task force. No new updates on that. I plan on getting with Director Bennett to get with some of her colleagues, see if we can get some meetings scheduled, or putting some feelers out there to see when we might be able to meet to go over some of the homework that Dan had previously given us that we'd filled out, and then get cranking on that. Ambitiously, I would like to have sort of concept ready before the end of 2025. Even if that's just, something on paper that we can look at. So ambitiously, that's the timeline. Obviously things are, subject to change, but I think we've got a lot of data internally that we could easily use to pilot it. And I think, thinking futuristically, I think it could also be a good platform for us to also be able to incorporate some of our community partners' data, especially as we look at, people experiencing homelessness. I feel like there's a lot of information about that some of our community partners would love to share with us that we could incorporate into these dashboards. So I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned. I hope to have a more formal update for you folks next month.
Well, bless your heart, Robert. End of the year sounds like music to my ears. And if nothing else, we put in all that labor to do the kind of the data flow for, like, I don't remember what it's called, but tracking who owned the data and how would it be integrated into the system. And I think Dan actually a month or two ago reacted that positively. So hopefully that really gets us somewhere. And thank you for all of your work on this in advance. Any questions for Robert's work or his presentation just now, his update? Alrighty. Upcoming community events. Other than our kind of known entities, namely Pride of the Park in September, our Trans Day of Remembrance in November, are there a lot coming up, Gretchen? And is this also, I guess, probably also part of our continuing conversation around going out into the community and doing that? My understanding, though, at one point was that we'd maybe pause that, or maybe taking a breath and doing less of that. Is that accurate?
I think where we left that was trying to get a sense of what might be of interest to the commission and committee members. We had shared a document that illustrated a few community events coming up, things like our peace walks, for example, and then the neighborhood associations, other boards and commissions meeting, and
Yeah.
invited commissioners to say, oh, this is what I'm interested in. Oh, and that list also included things like walking maybe up and down a section of the business areas on Lancaster Drive, for example. So we wanted to get some input from the commission as to what would be of interest. And so that's been sent out. So I think we're watching to see where interest coalesces. But I think there's a variety of ideas ranging tabling at universities, visiting business areas, attending neighborhood association meetings. I don't think we've heard or seen a kind of a plethora of response around coalescing around one particular idea.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, Gretchen, where you left it is where maybe I was thinking, which is that I think maybe the idea that we hope to retire is the idea that everything has to be a big formal to do. Because we really, for one, it's very kind of time and energy intensive to do that. We've only done it maybe once or twice successfully in the recent past, and every time that we do send a request for people's input or guidance, that either goes unanswered or doesn't really reach your critical mass. And so I'm just kind of thinking about allocation of energy and obviously your capacity as staff and Chris is here before too long. Just making sure that we are investing our energies where they're doing the most work. So I don't know. I don't know where that leaves us.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I know certainly Pride at the Park, that table is coming up, and we have, I think, 3 or 4 people signed up to table, and we could grabbing what appears to be of interest. And I really appreciate your point, Joaquin, about individual commission members may wish to attend things a little more solo or in pairs, and we can also be supportive if there's any information that would help support them as they go and do that. Like I know Commissioner Coleman, for example, attends Peace Walks routinely, and her neighborhood association, and I think that's wonderful. And if there's information or supportive points or information coming back from those visits that we can receive and support, I think that's also terrific. It can be decentralized, as you said.
Yeah, and it's not to duck the attending events. It's just that we just haven't been doing a good job, I think, of making sure that everyone is showing up to things. I will say though, what I'm not saying is do less of the things that we already do, like tabling and going to events like Pride in the Park or the city sponsored Spanish language resource fair and all things like that. I think we do that well, and we do them often enough. Although we could do it more. I think that's kind of more of our specialty is getting folks to volunteer for things like that. But my grandiose plan, however many a year ago or whatever it was to get folks out on a quarterly basis and take on Salem and introduce ourselves and talk to folks and hear back from them. And we may do that again in some way, but I think trying to really restart that every few months is probably maybe energy prohibitive for us. That was mostly my commentary.
In regards to the peace walks, I will have more information about those probably in September, because Highland is still doing the peace walks, so I'm still involved with those. But the others have been on a little bit of a break. And so the most well attended was the Lancaster one. So assuming that one will resume, depending on like the choices that the facilitators over there make, I would recommend, if we were to participate in one, going to that one, because that one usually has the, I would say, greatest likelihood of intersecting with community members, whether they're walking or out in the community.
Yeah, I think that would be great, Celine. Once you have more information about that, yeah, we'd love to take you up on that invitation. Robert, did you say something? I couldn't quite hear you if you did.
I did not know.
Oh, okay. Great. Any other comments or thoughts or reflections on this agenda item? All right. Well, this will be we'll get out early then for this meeting. That is to say, if there aren't any non-agenda items, comments on non-agenda items from members tonight. Well, hearing none, I really do appreciate all of you. I know I promised Robert and Gretchen, I promised them that I would be there in person tonight, and here I am breaking that promise. And I'm sorry for that, but I do appreciate your understanding and flexibility, and we'll see you all next time. So thank you for being here, and have a safe and wonderful rest of your